Christian tonight.
Sporting the colors.
Sounds like he's having a pretty hard time with it.
I call the regular meeting of the City Commission Monday, March 11th, 2019 to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
It has. All are present tonight except for Commissioner Lalone, who is ill.
Proclamations and presentations. Invite MEDC to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Go ahead and get this started here for you. We have just a real quick presentation for you about the Redevelopment Ready Communities Program. We're pleased to be here tonight to officially award certification to the City of Mount Pleasant for this program after nearly 4 years working towards this certification. So, perfect, great. For those of you who have not had a chance to meet yet, my name is Christopher Germain, by the way. I'm a senior planner with the Redevelopment Ready Communities Program. I also have a number of my MEDC fellow staff here with us. Catherine Zarnecki is our Senior Vice President of Community Development. And high in the back there is Michelle Parkinen, the manager of the RRC program, and Elizabeth King, who's going to have the privilege of taking over as the RRC planner for the city in about 5 minutes when Jacob doesn't have to deal with me anymore once we certify you. So before we provide the actual award to you, we just wanted to spend a few minutes highlighting the great things the city has done to prepare you for certification, and the whole reason that we're here to talk about how, what a great experience it is to develop here in Mount Pleasant. So RRC is a voluntary technical assistance program that basically says, as a community, you should sit in the driver's seat of economic development. You should decide what you want your community to be, how you want to get there, and then put those processes in place. Ultimately, by doing that, it helps you build those vibrant, diverse, and sustainable communities that then help us attract and retain talent, which is one of your key goals of your economic development strategy, and it's a key goal of us as the state of Michigan as well. We, of course, want all of our friends and families and brothers and sisters and everyone to stay right here in this state, start businesses and jobs. RRC is one way to build that foundation to help you do so. So we have 6 best practices within the program. I'm going to run through each of them very, very quickly. Feel free to ask me questions at some later point if you have them, but just the great things you're doing here in the city. So really this first best practice, plans and engagement, deals with just making sure that your plans are in place. You have up-to-date master plans, downtown development strategies, economic development strategies, capital improvements plans, public engagement, all those types of things. And so the city was built up-to-date plans. You actually established a public engagement strategy, which really documented and formalized all the great things you were already doing in the city to get proactive engagement from your citizens. And worked on your capital improvements plans to also improve that going forward. The second best practice deals with zoning. So this is another big area where you really shown the city adopted a character-based zoning ordinance last year. It's innovative. It's ahead of a lot of other communities in the state, which really focuses on how a building looks, the physical design of a building, and how it feels to a pedestrian or someone who's walking into that building versus the use, which is still an important piece of it. But by using this zoning ordinance, you're able to say, this is what we want Mount Pleasant to look like in the future going forward. You make that very clear and predictable to developers, so there's less negotiating at the Planning Commission level. It's just very clear up front what you would like Mount Pleasant to be, and a developer can decide if they fit that vision or not. And of course, if they don't, you can work with them to help them fit that vision going forward. So it reduces a lot of that uncertainty that you might see in a traditional zoning ordinance. Your third best practice, is the development review process. So it's taking that plan and that zoning ordinance and making sure that you actually have a process in place to get it through in a predictable, transparent, and timely manner. So the city made a number of improvements internally to do this, including a feedback mechanism, which actually asks folks afterwards, what was the process like? What can we improve on? What did we do really well? You're taking a look at that at least annually and making improvements to that process. You also did some great documentation of your internal review processes, created flow charts, just a number of other things that really can add to that predictability of the entire process. The third deals with recruitment, education, and communication. This is the idea that the folks who sit on your planning commission, your GDAs, your economic development corporations, you yourself as commissioners, you're up to date on the topics that matter to help you move forward as a city. So you're thinking strategically about training, you're attracting the right people to these positions, and you're helping them get caught up to speed, and most importantly, that you're talking to each other. So the Economic Development Corporation knows what the Planning Commission is doing, they know what the DDA is doing, and vice versa. So you're all on the same page and moving forward. The fifth best practice deals with redevelopment-ready sites. This is a big one for the city. We are, of course, standing right next to 410 West Broadway, which has been a big redevelopment opportunity for the city for a long time, has a project that is moving forward on that. That site was packaged, put into a request for qualifications for developers. The city, you guys spent some time thinking about what potential investments you can make on the site to work hand in hand with someone to get that vision that the city wanted to see. You've done that for a number of other sites as well, started that process for creating those larger packages. But the difference between a redevelopment-ready community and a traditional community is that you know where these opportunities are, and you've thought about them ahead of time, and you've said, we have our vision, this is where we want to go, this is how we get there, and these are the sites that we think will actually help us make that difference. So even though 410 West Broadway is now moving forward, you have a whole slew of sites waiting in the wings to become your next priority site, so you're well ahead of the game on that piece. And then the last best practice is community prosperity. So in order to get over the finish line on this one, the city updated its economic development strategy, which was last done in 2008. So it's now putting you on a good foundation for updating your master plan later this year. You, of course, updated the new brand for the city, the Meet Here brand, which, as we were telling folks earlier tonight, I think you've done one of the best jobs in the state, really, of really embracing a brand that you built, and we see it absolutely everywhere. And so that's great, because now when people think of Mount Pleasant, they think of Meet Here, come here, be the regional gathering place. That makes a difference. It tells a story for community. It's attractive not only to folks who want to develop and do physical development here, but also people who want to live here. People want to study here and start businesses here. You've really just framed what it means to be Mount Pleasant through this Meet Here strategy. So you're light years ahead of a lot of other communities who haven't created that type of brand. And then, of course, the last piece is your website. It's always kind of a no-brainer, we feel like, at this stage, but there's still a lot of communities who struggle to get websites up to date and have everything on there in an easy to find manner, I should say. So your guys' website is great to operate. You can easily find everything. Everything is up to date and wonderful with that key piece of information. So you did all of that stuff over the last 3.5 years, and why, right? What's the whole point of going through and doing those things? There's a lot of benefits that we just want to make sure you're clear of before we hand you the award. First is pre-development assistance. So we have a team called the Redevelopment Services Team who will now come work with the city to specifically look at those priority sites and help you kind of figure out those next steps for turning them over. So you are the 31st community in the state. So in other words, you have a team who's only working with 31 other communities across the state, compared to 254 that are currently in RSC and 1,300 local communities who actually exist in the entire state. So it's a pretty elite team that you now have access to, working to turn again those priority sites into reality. We also have a number of other areas where we help with site marketing assistance, continuing ongoing technical assistance. So as you're working on your master plan update, as you're maybe looking at your zoning ordinance and figuring out whether you got it right the first time or you need to make some tweaks around the second time, you have access to that kind of technical assistance in our network of folks, as well as ongoing technical assistance funds that you can also look at. Networking is another really big benefit of RSC. So again, you're the 31st community, so you now have access to that network of those other 30 who have also gone through this process. They've gotten all the way to the end. So if you're struggling with something, tap into that resource. Have your staff ask them, or you as elected officials, reach out to elected officials in those communities, and ask them, like, how did you guys handle this? So we can work towards, alleviating it for ourselves. And then, we're always trying to grow the pool of additional benefits. So one of the ones we also like to hire is we get a lot of comps to conferences. So there's only so many of us, and if we have extras, we would love to send Jacob, or Bill, or anyone else on staff, or any of you to the Michigan Association of Planning conferences or other types of things like that if we have those extra comps. So there's a real tangible value to that type of stuff. And then social media promotion, and so on and so on. And so as you're working through this program, or working with certification, I should say, if you have ideas of other ways we can help, this is just one example or a few examples of benefits of certification. So we would certainly encourage you to ask us what you could use help with. Tell us that, and we can tell you whether we can help you or give you some ideas, connect you to those additional resources. So we know you have a long agenda, and we want to get home. And so to be totally honest, so Catherine, if you'd like to come up. We have an actual award we'd like to hand you. You can put it wherever you want in City Hall. We encourage you to put it right where people can see it so you can brag about it and fun. It is a locally made award. I don't know if you want to say anything else, Catherine?
Yeah, I just want to say the Meet Here campaign brand. First of all, the fact that I ate it on a donut today was awesome, because I love donuts. But as Christopher said, there's over 1,300 communities in Michigan. I can name 2 community brands off the top of my head, Mount Pleasant being one of them. Those things show pride. It shows that you really believe in the future of your community and what you want to accomplish here. And as Christopher mentioned, 3.5 years, that's a long time. And the work that the staff put into getting to certification is really where all the recognition really needs to go. Bill's been a great partner, Jacob's been a great partner, and now we're here with some additional resources to help take you over the finish line and help you really implement all of those goals that you've already established. So we do pride ourselves in community development on being local. This is every certification plaque is handmade by a local artist in Old Town Lansing. So with that, I would like to proudly give the award of RRC certification to the City of Mount Pleasant. We have a whole bunch of swag,
We just want to hang on to it, Will?
So we'll just set this right here. Okay. Thank you so much. Yes, oh, sir.
I have a couple of questions. Are we free to use that logo, like put it on our business cards, our letterhead and stuff like that if we want?
Absolutely.
And make copies of it so that there's also copies of it like at the Chamber of Commerce and the real estate offices in town. You never know where people's first point of contact is going to be.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, I will say one of the whole bag of swag that we gave you includes 3 really large road signs that you could also use on walls, a bunch of stickers, and a handful of other things to definitely advertise your status in this program. We want you to do that far and wide.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate just today how important the redevelopment ready community recognition is to the City of Mount Pleasant, and how much work that our city staff, our community, and elected officials have put in to get there. Today I think I iterated that best practices is now our practice, and that's really what this is all about, to make Mount Pleasant a transparent and streamlined community for developers and people who want to live here and conduct their business. It's just it's something to say about our community, about how we really look forward to the future and how much we really value that. Part of the process is looking at how we plan, and this year we're looking at our master plan and planning for 2050. And just to be in a position in a community that's already looking 30 years ahead and how we want to position ourselves, I can't be more proud of our city and just the attitude and the ideas that we have moving forward every day. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone who was a part of this process. It was a lot of people who put their hands in together, and couldn't be prouder. So thank you.
Speaking of best practices, one of the things we've been doing for 40 years in the City of Mount Pleasant is recognizing community improvement awards. And so Jacob, our city planner, is here to, with the mayor, present 2 awards for the 2018 Community Service Awards, or Community Improvement Awards.
Right. Thank you, Nancy. Members of the commission, as Nancy mentioned, since 1979, the city's been awarding community improvement awards for projects that were completed in the city that have added to our quality of life, made investment in our community, and made our neighborhoods better places to live. Tonight's awards are the 2018 awards, so these are for projects that were completed in the year 2018. We are excited on behalf of the Planning Commission to award the Commercial Award to 1804 South Mission Street, which is McDonald's. So if we have a representative for McDonald's here, if you want to come forward. And we have our Residential Award this evening, which is going to 313 East Gaylord, which is Rentwood Management LLC. Do we have a representative from Rentwood? I see we got Mr. Brandon LaBelle here for that award. Before we make the presentation, I just want to also recognize the Graphic Arts Program at Gratiot Isabella Technical Education Center. This is the 5th year that they've helped us to make our awards. for the Community Improvement Awards. It's a really nice partnership. Fiona Sias produced the award for McDonald's this year, and Mercedes Pomeranke produced the award for 313 East Gaylord. So very excited about that. So with no further ado, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to present the commercial award to McDonald's. And our residential award to Rentwood Management. Thank you.
And if we could, Mayor, I'd like to reiterate what Jacob said about the Gratiot Isabella Technical Education Center helping us out with this for the 5th year. That's another great partnership of utilizing our local talent for this. So I think we should do a round of applause for those 2 students who helped us out.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is any additions or deletions to the agenda. Commissioner Kulik.
Yes, I'd like to add an item to the agenda to set a public hearing to repeal Ordinance 996, which is the Complete Streets Ordinance. It appears after our last meeting that this commission does not intend to follow the provisions of our own ordinance if there is the least bit of neighborhood opposition. It makes no sense to have an ordinance on the books that the city commission is not willing to enforce and or promote. The effect of this ordinance is to have a mandate for our Public Works Department to design streets, roads, expend time and resources where there is no expectation that those plans will be utilized if there's the least bit of neighborhood support. The city employs some of the most talented employees in the state. We invest considerable resources sending those employees to training so they can be at the cutting edge of topics they deal with. What is the sense of doing that if their recommendations are regularly overruled by a vocal minority with no expertise?
Is there a second? Seeing no second, the motion fails. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we will move into our public input on agenda items. If you'd like to talk about anything that's on the agenda tonight, you can come to the dais. Please state your name and your address. Just wanted to let you know that everybody has 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Scott Hawken, and I'm representing Apex Clean Energy and the Isabel Wind Project. The address is 4040 East James Street in Rosebush. I saw on the agenda that you have this discussion about the FAA and a letter of support or comments to the FAA, and I just want to give some quick background on the project and answer any questions tonight if needed. So the project itself is located in Isabella County. It is proposed in Nottawa, Gilmore, Denver, Vernon, and Isabella townships, which are all zoned by Isabella County, as well as portions in Wise Township, which is self-zoned. The project has been actively developed since 2016. There's over 50,000 acres of land privately leased with about 600 landowners. And as we've gone through the process, we have done some environmental screening, we've done transmission screening, as well as working with the FAA and some initial airspace screening. So as part of the typical due process, we have submitted 157 turbine locations and GPS coordinates to the FAA. We have specified a height up to 600 feet for the tip, the tallest that the turbines could possibly be, to allow for a range of technologies. And the FAA has going through their process to review any impacts of potential mitigation, and then we'll confer and pass that information on to the Michigan Department of Transportation, FAA department. And I'll address that a little bit further, but just to finish out the project itself. We're hoping to start construction here as early as this summer, and it could be online by 2020. Last month, January 31st, the Isabella County Planning Commission approved a special land use with several conditions for the portion that's zoned in Isabella County, and some of those require some environmental permits to be completed, as well as sign off by the FAA. So they recognize that the FAA and Michigan Department of Transportation has jurisdiction over that process. For further background, because the turbines are potentially proposed above 600 feet, there's an initial ceiling of 500 feet. The FAA controls airspace. So anything that protrudes above this 500-foot level gets an extra level of scrutiny and review. And so when we submitted on October 31st, the FAA did an initial review, said these turbines are going to protrude above 500 feet, so we need to do an extra level of review and circularization, which provides comments to local airports in the area, which is where we are now. And they will take that information and look for any mitigation or potential impacts at local airports. So I have some maps. I'd be happy to share those with you that show the Mount Pleasant Airport and up to 5 nautical miles radius, 3, 4, and 5 nautical miles. There are 27 proposed turbines within 5 nautical miles going out, and so we'll await the final decision from the FAA and MDOT as to the best way to proceed. Thank you.
My name's Al Davis, 111 South Coldwater Road. You know, he does have the maps at 5 miles out. I'm asking you guys to write a letter to keep all of the windmills out of that 5-mile radius. The reason is even if the MDOT says it's okay, and even if FAA says it's okay, why can't we go above and beyond for safety reasons? One of the reasons is I'd like to show you a couple pictures. This was taken. This is a color picture. This is the exact same picture. It's black and white. This would represent a guy that has is colorblind. Okay, so we can't distinguish these. This is haze on the ground. Edge of 27 windmills protruding above this. You can see how it could be a huge safety factor. The other thing that I would like to point out is, I don't know if anybody you guys know or remember Don Peltier. Don Peltier started training and teaching pilots for World War II right here at Mount Pleasant. Now you take Elma, Midland, Clare, Lake Isabella, and clear over to Lakeview. We all still do training in this area, new pilots. There's more aviation in this area because of all of the airports that are in the area than most areas around. So we're seeking, you know, to lower the minimum to around 400 feet because that's what the FAA has for drones for safety reasons. We'd like to see them down, kept at a minimum or a maximum, excuse me, for the drones and for us and for the new pilots. Right now we have 2 pilots getting ready to go and finish up their exams and finish up their pilot's license. 2 does not sound like a lot, but when you take 2 over the scope of this area and both of them gentlemen want to pursue their career and go on into commercial pilots to the airlines, the airlines are hurting really bad for pilots. If we can contribute 2, that's huge. So, and then not only that, the growth of the community. You know, if the airport is stifled, the community is stifled. So Again, we're pushing the growth of the community. The biggest thing is the safety of the pilots. So if you'd write a letter, you know, to the MDOT and FAA, we'd sure appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment on agenda items tonight? Seeing no one step forward, I will close this public comment section. We'll move on to receipt of petitions and communication. Manager Ridley, would you like to go through those?
Yes, we just have 4 items for you tonight on this. The report on the pending items, the October minutes of the Traffic Control Committee, the January minutes of the Parks and Recreation Commission, and then notice of a temporary traffic control order, which is to implement 3-hour parking on Franklin Street. My mind just went blank. Yes, on Franklin Street between Mosier and Chippewa.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to consent calendar items. Consent calendar items are items on the agenda that have an asterisk next to them. Is there anyone who'd like to remove anything from the consent calendar tonight? Seeing none, Manager Ridley, would you like to go through those?
Yes, the items we're recommending tonight are the approval of the minutes of both your special and regular meetings of February 25th. And we have one bid for you this evening for the work that needs to be done on the Fisher Street lift station. As indicated in our commission memo, we first bid this project as a combination of 2 projects. One project was for the rehabilitation of the Fisher lift station, which is on the north side of High Street. The second project was related to a project we were looking at for Chippewater's Park and included the installation of a lift station for that location and then a tie-in to the sanitary sewer system. This was originally believed it would be a cost-effective way to address the Chippewater's restroom sanitary flow instead of using the existing septic system. But after receiving the actual bids on it, they came in much higher than what we had anticipated them to be. So we believe it makes more financial sense to rehab the existing septic system. So we pulled that project from the bid. When we contacted the low bidder to indicate that is what we were recommending, he indicated that due to the delay in timing of the work and the loss of synergy, that their bid price would need to be adjusted by $3,850. But even with that adjustment, his bid was still the low bid by more than $21,000 from the other bidders. So we're recommending approval of the bid for Isabella Corporation for the Fisher lift station work at a cost of $90,350 and a budget amendment from the wastewater collection reserve to cover the work. Our second item on the consent calendar is for you just to receive the applications for 2% requests. These applications are due to Tribal Council by the end of the month, and it's been our practice that you receive them at one meeting, and then at your next meeting you will be able to provide input into the priority levels and also indicate your top 5 priorities for the Tribal Council to consider. At your last meeting, we recommended that you postpone action on an amended contract with Consumers Energy to replace some of the street light poles and the street lighting to LED on Maple Street based on your decision to redesign the street. Since that time, we've met with consumers on site and discussed the plan to keep the street at its current 41 feet width. Consumers has looked at the locations and confirmed that because the poles are currently placed in those locations, there will be no additional redesign costs for them, so they are sticking with their original estimate of the $4,986 for that work. And so we're recommending you authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the appropriate documents with Consumers to replace those light poles with LED lights and the corresponding budget amendment of $5,000. Our next item is we're recommending you change the meeting time, the start time of your meeting of your April 8th meeting. As you know, our master plan process starts this year, and a major component of that master plan will be public engagement. Our consultants have worked with staff and have would like to kick off the major week of public involvement the week of April 8th. So they would like to hold an event in this room from 5:30 to 7:30 to kick off the event. And so in order to accommodate that, we're recommending you move the start time of your regular meeting to be 7:30 that evening instead of 7. And then the last item on the consent calendar is approval of payrolls and warrants.
Commissioner Kulik,
Move approval of the consent calendar as presented.
Commissioner Vice Mayor Gillis. Second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say vote by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes 7-0. 6-0, yeah, thank you. We'll move on to item number 12, consider recommendation for a part-time airport position and budget amendment on the same.
As we discussed with you 2 weeks ago, we've had numerous discussions about staffing levels and some of the challenges we have as a result of it. And we've always committed that if we can't meet current services with our existing staffing levels, we would bring forward recommendations to you. So tonight we're bringing another recommendation for an adjusting staffing level, which is out of sync from what we would normally do, but it has to do with the continued sustainability of our airport. You've heard about the importance of our airport to the Isabella County and the regional community, and our plan for sustainability of the airport is primarily based on generating fuel sales. And in order to generate those fuel sales, we have focused our primary mission to be on customer service, particularly to jet and corporate traffic, so that we can get repeat business coming here based on our service levels. And I think we've had some success with that. In 2016, we had call-outs for after-hour services, which means after 5 p.m. at night or on the weekends, from jet and corporate traffic totaling 27 call-outs. In 2017, that increased to 42 call-outs. And in 2018, as we closed out the books, we were at 100 call-outs for the year. So you can see the growth in that traffic. In just the first 2 months of this year, January and February, we had 28 call-outs in just 2 months. So our repeat service seems to be working. The challenge it creates is from the staffing level, because for those after-hour call-outs, we have one full-time manager and one part-time manager, and then we occasionally use on-call staff. So based on those increasing number of call-outs, you can imagine the difficulty that we are beginning to have with appropriately staffing those call-outs. And they can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 4 hours, and require anywhere from 1 to 3 staff, depending on the services that are needed. So we've evaluated various staffing levels and service options, and have concluded that the most cost-effective to provide the needed flexibility for scheduling would be the addition of another half-time position. And the reason we're bringing it to you now is for 2 reasons. One, we had the documented numbers of the number of call-outs we've had, but secondly, our current 20-hour per week employee is leaving us in May because he's moving out of the area. So we thought it would be an ideal opportunity to recruit for both positions at the same time, and also be able to do the training simultaneously so that they can both hit the ground running. So we're recommending your approval of this position. The estimated cost is approximately $15,000 for the year. And we've been reviewing our call-out fees based on the service we are providing, and we'll be taking a recommendation to the Airport Advisory Board to increase those call-out fees this year, and we believe that will cover a portion of the increased cost, and then hopefully the fuel sales will help us out with the rest of it. So we're recommending you authorize the addition of the position and the appropriate expenditure budget amendment.
Commissioner Kulik.
Move to approve the addition of a part-time position to the airport and an airport expenditure budget amendment of $15,000 for the same.
Commissioner Perschbacher.
I second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Kulik.
I just want to thank staff. You know, I realize this is out of sync, but they don't bring us requests to add staff or delete staff unless it's been studied and vetted. So sometimes things just fall out of sync, and it happens that way. But thank you for doing your due diligence.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Agenda item number 13, consider endorsement of comments to Federal Aviation Administration regarding wind turbine project.
As you heard during public comment, and as you know from your last agenda packet, the Federal Aviation Administration is asking for comments on an aeronautical study they are completing for the wind turbine project, and we have until March 15th to submit comments on behalf of the city of Mount Pleasant. So 2 weeks ago, you asked that we draft something to send to the FAA for you to consider this evening. And also that same week, the Airport Advisory Board met and they passed a motion asking for the same kind of thing to make sure we took the opportunity to comment while we had the opportunity. So as you know, FAA must first obtain comments and looks to see what would be needed to accommodate the structure. As Mr. Hawken indicated, then the Michigan Department of Transportation Aeronautics will also review the request, and they'll also review it in relation to Michigan's Tall Structure Act. And it's our understanding we'll have another opportunity to comment during that review period as well. But based on what we've learned from the Michigan Department of Transportation Aeronautics staff this week, they've told us that it appears that some of the structures may have an impact on our airport based on the preliminary site plan with the taller structures. And in order to accommodate those taller structures, what it often will mean is that planes may have to take a steeper approach, which then requires a longer runway. And if that were the case, it could have a negative impact on our airport as far as the number of jets or corporate traffic that could land at our airport. And we've really been relying on the MDOT Aeronautics staff to do this analysis for us because they do this all the time and they're familiar with the airspace. We also spoke to the county planning department and they indicated, just like Mr. Hawken did tonight, that they cannot review site plans for the actual placement of the turbines unless they have approval from FAA for those locations. So we've drafted the communication for your consideration this evening that would indicate that the city is in support of alternative energy, but we request that the placement of the turbines be done in a way to ensure that any negative impact on the airport is mitigated. And as we learn more about this and go through the process, we certainly can provide additional comments during the MDOT Aeronautics review if we have further concerns that we want to be addressed. But we believe at this point that that would adequately address the concerns with the airport and allow the experts to work with Apex to figure out the best way to mitigate that impact.
Commissioner Kulik.
Move to authorize the city manager and airport manager to send the drafted comments to the FAA as presented.
Commissioner Perschbacher.
I second that.
Is there any discussion? Commissioner Ling.
I am supportive of our sending the letter. I think obviously it's very important for us to let the FAA know what the potential impact could be on our airport. I guess the question that I have is this, and we may not have any way of knowing the answer to it, but as I look at this, I'm thinking we indicate that these are going to be the concerns. So then is the reaction of the FAA and MDOT to say, okay, let's work with Apex. We're not going to approve this until we figure out a way to minimize or eliminate the impact? Or is the response going to be, yep, it's going to have that impact, so you're going to have to adjust to it because it's going to have that impact? I guess what I'm asking is, does the fact that we have concerns about this, and it obviously could have a very significant impact, mean it's likely to have influence the decision that is made in a way that says, and I hear and am sympathetic to what the representative from Apex is telling us. I think they're sincere about the fact that they would like to work with the city to work this out. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of a position we're in at this point.
It's our belief from our conversations with the staff at MDOT that our comments do have an impact on that, and they won't just say, okay, thank you, we understand. They will try to mitigate that, and they also have to look at the Tall Structures Act and make sure they can permit based on what the Tall Structures Act. So I think that our concerns will be heard and will be addressed.
Thank you.
Commissioner Toles.
I have a question here. In reading this report, it states that their notice is 605 feet, but it also states there are no current turbines in Michigan that are above 499 feet. What's the 106-foot difference?
There are no turbines currently constructed in Michigan that are above 499. This is a request to construct ones that could be as high as 605 feet. So the difference is what's already constructed versus what's being requested here.
I understand that. I'm just wondering what's the difference with 106 feet?
Oh, why are they higher here?
Why does it have to be higher?
We could ask Mr. Hawken that question if you wanted to. It would be a change in procedure from what you typically do, but you could decide to ask him that if you want to know that tonight.
Commission be comfortable with asking a question?
Sure.
Okay.
I know we're in a valley, so that might be why, but
We're on top of
hear from the experts. Yeah, not that much of a valley, right?
Sure, so the question was why potentially up to 605 feet? The technology is improving, and so as turbines can get taller, they can do a better energy capture. The wind speeds increase as you get higher in altitude, so that higher up they can go, they can be more efficient and produce more energy. So the technology is improving, just like farm equipment is getting bigger, wind turbines are getting larger to be more efficient.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? I would just like to point out that I think that the commission and our community as a whole is really supportive of the idea of wind energy, but we also own an airport, and the airport, to be frank, doesn't make money. In fact, we're lucky to break even, so any impact on the ability of especially jets to come into our airport could really impact the ability for us to keep the airport open. And it's estimated that the airport generates $8 million of revenue in the area. So it is important to us, not only from a budget standpoint, but also to our community and our neighbors, that the airport remains viable. So I will be supporting this motion, and we look forward to working with Apex and our neighbors to really find a solution that works for everybody. Commissioner Gillis.
Just to clarify, our airport currently is subsidized by taxpayers. It is not a revenue-generating airport enough to carry all the costs of the airport. So every taxpayer in the city of Mount Pleasant subsidizes the airport. And thank you for doing that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We'll move on to announcements on city-related issues and new business. Are there any announcements? Commissioner Cooley?
I have a question for John with the thaw that's coming. I know that a lot of the storm sewer catch basins are iced over. What should people do in their neighborhood if all of a sudden they have a lake out there because the water can't get down to the catch basin?
If they can clear them, that's good. If not, they can call the Public Works. We were out today clearing some of those off to keep the water so it drains off the streets.
Thank you.
Commissioner, Vice Mayor Gillis?
Yeah, as chair of the appointments committee, I'd like to invite any community member that would like to participate in some of our committees. Right now, we have a vacancy on our Isabella County Material Recovery Facility, often referred to as the MRF, and also our LDFA, our Local Development Finance Authority. It governs the Smart Zone out at Central. So you can find that application on mountpleasant.org under boards and commissions, and the application is right there. You can fill it out electronically, and please do so and join our team. And I also would like to make a comment on sidewalk snow removal. It's been very many months and almost all of last year where we had this discussion. But I noticed on my way in today, on the other side of Nelson Park, on the south side of Broadway, we have city sidewalks that are a complete glare of ice. The snow has been removed, but because of our uncommon weather in the last couple months, we all have seen the effects of the snow and the ice and then the snow again. So where our DPW is doing the best they can to clear our sidewalks, even the ones that they go through and snow plow, paid for by us taxpayers, we are not able to get down to the pavement, and literally is nothing but an ice skating rink on the south side of Nelson. So there has to be some kind of way that we can get our city sidewalks clear, but yet not expect our residents to do that when we can accomplish that for ourselves. So please feel free to take a ride down Broadway and look on the south side of Nelson Park, and you can see for yourself the ice skating rink that is our sidewalks that we don't have the ability to clear even through our own employees here at City Hall. Thank you.
Are there any other announcements tonight? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move into our public comment on any city-related business. If you'd like to make a comment, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and your address.
Short. Good evening. My name is Lisa Haddon. I live at 3216 South Vandekar in Deerfield Township, and I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit about an event that we'd like to hold right here next Saturday, March 16th from 10 to 4. I currently serve as the Executive Director of the Mid-Central Area Health Education Center, which is a long name for a nonprofit, but we're housed in the College of Medicine at CMU, and we are sponsoring a health fair here Saturday in partnership with our medical students at the College of Medicine. So we will be here in this room from 10 until 4, and the health fair is free for any community member that wants to stop by, whether they have insurance or not. We'll have physicians and faculty here from the College of Medicine, our medical students, and other health professionals, and we'll be providing various services and tests and screening, such as blood sugar tests, EKG for heart health, body mass index screening, nutrition, depression screening, and our hope is to reach out to the community to provide services to community members who may otherwise not have access or can't get out for some of these services. Our intention with our medical students with these screenings is to provide our community members with timely same-day information regarding the status of their health, along with resources that they can use for adequate follow-up care and lifelong health. The follow-up care that we would have on site on Saturday would involve assistance of social workers, of patient navigators, and these individuals would be ready, available to our community members if they stop by, to assist them in finding available primary care providers if they don't have access to a primary care provider, and possibly to connect them with insurance sources, and to receive any type of follow-up care to direct them in the proper ways to identify follow-up care. If lack of health insurance is an issue, our patient navigators and our students will assist any community member in determining the most appropriate plan or coverage and help them sign up that day for it. The following is a list of some of the stations that we will have here. Of course, we will have physicians on hand for basic counseling. We'll be providing EKG services for cardiology. We'll have nutrition education. We will have representatives from our OB-GYN practices to make sure that people understand the importance of getting into prenatal care in the first trimester of pregnancy. We'll have fall prevention strategies and screening for our seniors. 8CAP will be here to talk about some of their services. We'll also have representatives from home health care agencies in our county in case someone's looking for options for a loved one or a senior that needs home health care. We'll have representatives from McLaren at Mid-Michigan Health, and of course we'll have social workers available to help direct people to services and representatives from the local health department to answer questions about, say, children's vaccine or other services that they provide. So again, we invite you and all community members to stop by this Saturday, 10 to 4, right here in this room. We're going to transform this room into a giant healthcare and assessment. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, the gentleman from Apex, we can kind of beat this dog back and forth all day long and all year long and everything else. But when he talks about technology, I'd like to ask him where the technology is on their Pine River project down there. They've had windmills up for almost 6 months long. I haven't been down there for a while, but the structures are up in the air. They're a hazard. And most of the lights, or some of the lights, aren't even working on top of the structure. So, where's the safety commitment there? So again, I'd like to, reiterate the safety around the airport of Mount Pleasant and the rest of the community. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Don Shore. I live in Scully Road, 1600 Scully Road in the township right outside. Currently, I am working with Apex. I have been working in rural and small city redevelopment and economic development for almost 40 years. Congratulations on your recognition tonight from MEDC. Sometimes we tend to overlook how important that is, but really it signifies the community collaboration and the hard work that's gone on with all the staff, everybody that works with the partnerships, Middle Michigan Development. I cannot tell you how much and how important that is when a community puts itself out and says to a developer or somebody that's already in the community, stay here, we're getting our act together, come and help us. One comment about the proposed wind farm. The project that the previous gentleman just mentioned is not an Apex project, it's a different project. The light pattern in all the wind farms that are out are also determined by the FAA and Michigan Aeronautics. So whether they're working or not at any given time is generally not the project's determination. It's the bureaucracy that deals with those sorts of things. So, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment tonight? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section. So we'll recess into our work session.
We want to mention
Move to adjourn.
Yep.
No,
And it's
no.
moved. We're going to be moving upstairs, and the public is welcome. We're having a work session on our priority setting. So if you'd like to join us for that discussion, please feel welcome to. Otherwise, have a good night.